زينة الإيمان أن السلام حياة قد جاء في القرآن أن السلام.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and welcome to iTREND on ITV. I'm your host, Zaheerah Bham Ismail. This is our last episode in the beautiful month of Ramadan. And I don't know if it's a toss-up or not, but somehow we've decided that the last show has to be about food. Because in the preparation for Eid, we know many of you are looking for that ideal meal. And that's what we've decided to present to you today. But before we get into our show and we get into this, there is something that I have to mention. Very often we lambasting our youth. We say our youth are just not involved. They are selfie generation. They don't give back. And I have to say that this weekend I saw something completely different. We were busy on certain outreach projects in Soweto area, and we were very fortunate to come across two teams, the Sporting Lions and the Food for Soul team, who were absolutely remarkable. These are youthful individuals who gave so much of themselves, and not just over this weekend. From what I've noticed, have been giving of themselves throughout this month of Ramadan, and who give much of themselves throughout the year as well. So hats off to all of you. Thank you so much for being such an inspiration and for making us realize that there's so much hope amongst our youth. And with people like you, we know that our children and our younger generations have much to look forward to as well. You stand as strong pillars within our community. Shukran to each and every single one of you. Coming back to today's show, my guest today needs very, very little introduction. His name is synonymous with fine dining, with being a master at the table. For someone who has refined and defined what halal fine dining is at a very young age, I'd like to welcome to our studio Ozzy from the MasterChef. Assalamu alaikum and welcome.
Assalam. Thank you for having me.
Ozzy, you started off on this food journey at a very young age. So it was in MasterChef, you were just 22 years old?
That's correct.
Tell me about your inspiration behind wanting to get involved in food.
Shukr alhamdulillah, I think since a very young age, as soon as I finished matric, I had a passion for food and I wanted to go into the industry. However, life had a different plan for me, and I come from a family of accountants. So
I was just going to say, you come from a very business-minded family,
Correct.
a family that's very focused in accounting, in
Yes.
the fashion industry.
Correct.
And then here you come along and you're saying, I want to get into the food industry.
Yes, it was extremely difficult at first I was an 18-year-old kid with an idea in my mind, and to put it out there, it wasn't really getting accepted. So I went on to go and study accounting, and obviously not being my passion, I didn't do too well at it. And I decided to enter MasterChef at 22, and actually the encouragement came from my family. And I think MasterChef was my calling, and at that point I realized this is what I wanted to do, and this is where my passion lies. And I had a natural talent for it, which obviously made it so much more easier, and it didn't become work. So shukr alhamdulillah, that's where my journey began.
Alhamdulillah. But how difficult was it to put so much of yourself out there on a public platform? Because MasterChef literally had you on a very public platform. Your name became synonymous in every household with halal food, with fine dining. And there was a lot of yourself on a personal basis that was put out there. What was it like even watching it later? Because I know many of those episodes were screened beforehand.
Correct.
And then you got to watch it with the rest of us.
So, entering MasterChef in the beginning, obviously not being on national TV was the simple part. And I think it mainly comes down to the society we grow up in and what we're exposed to. We come from a more hidden, closed-off society, so we're not exposed, or we're not as loud or out there as other cultures are. And being on national TV, there were so many different things to worry about: the way you sounded, the way you looked, the fact that your religion played a big part in obviously what we eat and the way we portray ourselves. So it most definitely was an eye-opener for me. It was extremely difficult, but I must say that the true colors of the South African diversity came out in the shooting of MasterChef. They've bent over backwards to accommodate every single person that entered the competition. and to your religion, your culture, there was absolutely no boundary stopping you from achieving your goal.
Which is fantastic to hear, because I think very often people are afraid to enter into these competitions thinking they'll be restricted or they'll be forced to do something. So to actually hear that it's something that a South African population supports diversity and is open to it is remarkable. And the one thing I must say is that when you entered something like that, it wasn't just in an individual capacity. You represented the entire Muslim population here.
Correct, and you know, it all came down to that mindset that we have of entering a foreign industry. And we are fortunate to be great businessmen, and we're often passionate about business more than we're passionate about the crafts. And during MasterChef, I realized this, and lots of families will encourage the youth rather to go into a specific field where they know it's confirmed and the individual can succeed, and you go into a professional sector. And it was really tough for me to enter something. I had sleepless nights, obviously not knowing what I'm getting myself into. And Shukr Alhamdulillah, I wouldn't do anything differently.
I must tell you, for as much as you put yourself out there, there were many of us, myself included, that were glued to it, that were cheering you on all the way. What was the response from, I know your immediate family, there was great support, but what was the response from your peers, from people that you'd been in school with, from friends around you?
It was absolutely phenomenal. I can't tell you the joy and the feeling. Obviously, you'd wish you had that same support live during shooting the show, but getting it afterwards made it all that much more worthwhile. Just knowing that you have the entire South African Muslim community supporting you and cheering for you, and it was absolutely amazing.
I think that for me stands out so much, because you literally broke stereotypes by going on there. To have a male person, although we know that from our history the Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam was so actively involved in his home, but here in our country where a lot of cultural bias comes into place as well, you were standing there in the forefront of it, and we loved every minute of it. So I think a lot of husbands got flack, I have to just say that. Tell me your journey since then. I mean, it's been just a short few years, but you've already achieved a lot in that time. Has it been very goal-directed since the time you've left the show?
Most definitely. I think it was goal-driven to a point of personal achievement more than glory and fame. And Shukr Alhamdulillah, I think through the perseverance of going about in this chosen path of mine in career, the glory and fame came on its own. And sometimes you try to shy away from it, and sometimes people tell you to embrace it, but it's not that easy. So after MasterChef, I decided to go professional and study in Cape Town. And I attended the South African Chefs Academy, which at the time was the only halal certified chef school in the country. And while I was studying at South African Chefs Academy, I did my internship at the Mount Nelson Hotel, and further did training at the one and only in Cape Town. And it was one of the most humbling experiences of my life. I think coming from a background where we were gifted, we were truly blessed by having everything, and going into an industry where I worked on average 12 hours a day, 6 days a week, and my first paycheck was no paycheck for 6 months. I worked every single day at the one and only. It was absolutely amazing. I hated pastry. During the show on MasterChef, my downfall was pastry.
Yes.
And one of my mentors told me, do the job you hate first. So when I went to the one and only, I studied as a pastry chef for 6 months. And it was out of this world. I got to work with some of the best pastry chefs in the country, and it really made me understand the attention to detail and what it entails, and it made me appreciate it. And shukr for doing that, because today it makes me understand the entire circle in a kitchen. It's not just a hot section or cold section. I can do pastry as well, and you know, it helps a lot.
And I think what's remarkable about that you've just mentioned is that success never comes just easy. It's not something, and I think our viewers must understand this hasn't been something that's just been dropped onto your plate to say, well, you've been through MasterChef, here you go. There's been a lot of hard work after that. There's been a lot of late nights. There's been a lot of perseverance and a lot of stress and tears to get you to where you are.
Of course. And yeah, after Cape Town, I came back to Johannesburg, and I started at the Saxon. And going into the Saxon, I think it was even harder coming from a background of a culinary TV show, because everyone in the kitchen has no glory. All the chefs in the kitchen are the stars behind the scenes, and they never get any recognition until quite later on in their careers. So starting in a professional kitchen, being my first paid job, I took a lot of flack from my peers. They were extremely hard on me, and I think that's the reason at the end of the day, I spent more time with them than I spent with my family. So I earned their respect in a way that they knew I was fit for the position and I could do the job. And I had the utmost respect and still do have for them, because they work so hard and put in so much more effort than I have, and so much more time into their careers. And I was just blessed by getting an opportunity, obviously, and being on a social platform.
Fantastic. But you've mentioned something now, and I think it's so important to note, because whether you're a chef or whether you're someone at home putting out something for your family, the appreciation that goes behind putting out that meal. Because very often we don't realize the amount of time, the amount of effort, the amount of preparation that goes behind the scenes. And I know, being in the industry now, I know we have very critical customers that we often just sit there and we've got a comment, but we don't realize the amount of effort that goes into every single plate.
Correct. No, it's on a Saturday night in the restaurant, you're looking at about 150 to 200 covers, on average 2 courses per person, which essentially is 400 plates in a 2-hour window. And obviously you don't have 2 hours to give someone their food. You've got between 10 to 15 minutes. And the quality has to be the same from the beginning of the service to the end of the service. And it becomes hard, because obviously, like you say, we don't have that appreciation for what goes on in that kitchen and the preparation, and obviously the human downfalls, and you know, it will never be perfect, but that's what we strive for.
And unfortunately, as customers, we're never very easy with that either.
As long as we pay, we always have entitled to an opinion.
Perfect. So I want to ask you very quickly, do you still eat out?
Most definitely.
Okay.
My favorite pastime with my wife is probably eating out. And I think you become so much more appreciative, like you say. You know, I don't think I've ever complained at a restaurant. If anything, I'd rather give someone advice to tell them, this is something we need to fix, or if I don't like it, I just won't go back.
Absolutely.
But only they know what they go through every day in that kitchen, so I don't think I earn the right to knock them down.
And that only comes with wisdom and with experience. Absolutely.
No, definitely.
We are sitting here in the studio with these phenomenal aromas around us, and it's exceptionally hard because it is Ramadan. But we'll be taking a very quick ad break, and when we come back, we are going to be discussing a few of Aussie's favorite dishes. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and welcome back to the show. In studio with us today is the remarkable Aussie. As we mentioned, everyone knows who he is. We all know about Aussie's Kitchen, and today we're getting a little glimpse about Aussie's Kitchen and the life behind it, the person behind it. Aussie, when we were talking about food, we were talking about your favorite meals. You graciously accepted our request to come and to share with us your favorite Eid meals. Eid is just a few days away. Ladies are already getting prepared. Men also are getting very prepared for what's happening in the kitchen, because we also want to get sorted out for Eid. We want to make sure our families are okay. Tell us, I'm sitting here, firstly, I have to tell you, the aromas in the studio is, it's a huge test. Take us through 2 of the dishes to start with now.
Okay, so over here, this is a very light Eid morning breakfast snack. We've got a green masala blini with some onion marmalade, or caramelized onions and brie. Then we've got a feta cheese, a marinated feta cheese, which is deep fried with some basil and tomato. Then we've got a homemade snook pate, which is really simple to make. And I don't know about most families, but on our Eid table, there's a lot of seafood on Eid day. Usually because Ramadan, no one eats any seafood, or it's we try to stay away from seafood during Ramadan. So obviously a lot of seafood and big hearty meals, lots of family, and you know it's not something that we like to get. Obviously people want to put the best presentation on, but we still want the family to feel as if though it's an informal setting and it's casual enough. And
I absolutely love how you've prepared the starter plate. How much time would it take for somebody to do? Because Eid mornings are really busy.
Correct.
Preparation is, time is limited.
Yes, so everything that's on the plate can be pre-prepped. Basically your pate is the only thing and your deep fried feta cheese balls can be fried on the morning, and this pate put on so the bread doesn't get soggy. But everything else can be pre-prepped and ready to go. It would probably take you about 15 to 20 minutes just to assemble everything and put it out.
Fantastic. One of our first guests during Ramadan from Pots and Pancakes also had the same thing during Ramadan about having prepared beforehand, making sure it looks okay and easy. And I love the fact that we're tying the end of the season with the same thing again.
You know, the thing is, I think during Ramadan we have a lot of savories and fries, and the last thing you want to see on your Eid table is more savories. So
yes,
and it's something light and refreshing, and it's not too heavy. Obviously, some people have a really big Eid breakfast. They prefer the leg roast for breakfast instead of lunch.
My family is one of those, even though we keep eating and there's lots of food again afterwards. But I love the idea of the fact of going with something lighter, because you know you're preparing for a heavier meal in a little while after that. And then take us this seafood paella. I must say, this is giving a new twist into how paellas should be served.
So the seafood paella is something we can all relate to, because most of our lunch tables on Eid day have a rice dish. It's often biryani, or according to your
ethnicity, absolutely.
Sorry. And so the flavors of a paella are very similar to the flavors we're familiar with. It's a Spanish dish by tradition, and it's so simple to make and so easy to make. It's basically a one-pot wonder. There's no setting of biryani on Eid day and starting the day before.
And actually, even for an Eid meal, because I know many families do seafood for an Eid meal in the evening. So just take us through, Ozzy, in terms of setting this out the way you've done it and what we have on top of the paella.
So basically,
on top of the rice.
Basically, it's a paella rice, and it's a bit of, it's almost as you start off any, like a akni or something to that sort. So you'll start off make it by sauteing your onions and green peppers. It contains a lot of paprika and saffron and red chili to get the correct color. So the flavors are amazing, and it's got a really rich, wonderful flavor. And the seafood is very delicately prepared. It's basically, all the seafood is just steamed, and you make a chili lemon pata, which you then dip your seafood in and grill at the last minute. I always found it quite challenging plating rice dishes. And obviously trying to fit in with majority of my clientele being Muslim, Indian, you have to have a rice dish.
Absolutely.
And in order to give it the right presentation and the right look, it's been really challenging. But what I find works the best with rice dishes is often to use a mold. And today this is quite a simple mold, and you can do the exact same thing trying to set a biryani in a fancy way. Okay. And it's almost foolproof. So I took a cake loaf, a cake loaf tin, and basically I've basically packed my rice in, kept my seafood separate, put the platter over it and flipped it over, and then just decorated the top with all the different seafoods. And if you were to plate a biryani in this manner, then you'd obviously start with your white rice first, and then you put your masala, and then flip it over on the platter in the same way, and you'd still have all the layers.
This is giving biryani a new twist for Eid completely.
One of my challenges and one of my main objectives is to have a Indian fine dining restaurant. So I think the flavors of Indian food are absolutely amazing, and there's an appreciation for it worldwide. However, in South Africa, we've developed our own style, our own way of Indian cooking. It's got absolutely nothing to do with the food that's prepared in India.
Absolutely.
And I think that we've almost created a new food culture in South Africa, and I'd like to showcase that. I'd like to have it on my menu. I'd like to be able to create it in a manner that, or recreate it in a manner that it's something we're familiar with, yet it's plated and done in a way that we would never have imagined.
And you're right, because I think we've fused so many cultures together, we've fused so many tastes together, and we have got our own little, it's very separate, it's very individual, it's a very unique taste.
That's right.
And I love the fact that you've catered for it. I love the idea of being able to set our biryani. I love how you've said, you know, how to put the layers into it as well. And if you have a look at the seafood paella, I always say the cameras never ever do justice to this. So I will try and put this onto my Insta Live story as well. But it's absolutely fantastic. It's well presented, it's well put out, and it's well thought through as well.
No, it's... I think Eid meals are quite hearty, and we're so used to having prawns, but this is a fulfilling meal. It's something that you can serve large amounts of people without having to break the bank.
Yes.
Obviously, serving 20 people prawns today,
it's
a bit exorbitant, but paella is a good way to incorporate the best of both worlds. So you have your seafood, and it's a nice hearty meal with the rice, and I think it's a great way to have eat lunch.
Absolutely. Ozzy, just for all our viewers, if you have any of your meal questions, preparations, or putting things together, plating, please do feel free to call into the studio, and Ozzy will be more than happy to answer those questions for you. With regards to the meal, coming back to Eid meals, what are the favorite things that we are seeing on the menus these days? I know very often we talk about things that are trending, and even in the food industry, we have things that are trending all the time.
Correct. So, you know, it's food trends often don't really coincide with what we are used to eating. And one of the latest trends this year is fermentation. And we think of fermentation and we think to ourselves, but we don't like smelly foods. But fermentation is the furthest thing from smelly foods. And Indians are one of the best at fermenting products and pickling products. We have the best achars, we have the best pickles in the world, and it's become a huge thing in today's, in the latest food trends. So lots of people are pickling vegetables, and the Italians have their version called jardiniere, and you have the Indian pickles, Indian mango pickles, lemon pickles. Obviously, as it's come down, it's changed and it's altered a bit. And these are lots of the new food trends you'd see on new menus in new restaurants, bistros.
Absolutely, and I think you're right. We have definitely perfected that.
Correct. And you know, if we look at, like, we go back to the paella and the accompaniments that can go with the paella, a lemon pickle would be absolutely ideal. You can serve it with almost similar accompaniments to a biryani. So if you want the option of both, you can use the same accompaniments and use the fried papar or a lighter day for the paella, and that would work exceptionally well.
You see, for me, I would just end up doing a light lemon butter sauce with it. My husband would want the extra spices on the side, so that would work as well. We're going to be going for another quick ad break. When we get back, we'll be discussing more Eid meal ideas, so stay tuned. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. This show is going by so fast, and in a way it may be a better thing because the smells of this food are absolutely amazing. And as I mentioned earlier, very tough to be sitting in a studio being surrounded by it during Ramadan. Ozzy, we've discussed the paella, we've discussed some starters for our table. Take us through the rest of our meals.
So we've got a basic prawn and evo salad, and it's something nice, light and refreshing. And it's quite well suited for a dinner function, eat dinner. And so you've got your prawn tails, and you can basically use the same prawns that you would use for lunch. Obviously, you'd deshell them, devein them, and just saute them in some butter and garlic. And put together a pretty green salad with some evo, and you can finish it off with the balsamic glaze. The nice thing about the balsamic vinegar is that once you take it, reduce it far enough, it's got almost the same qualities as amli or tamarind. And the acidity and the flavor of the balsamic glaze works excellent with any seafood dishes or prawns, and it's the perfect accompaniment in a green salad with any seafood.
Any of us have thought about taking a balsamic vinegar and reducing it, so I think that's a really good idea and a good tip to use.
Yeah, it's a glaze that works extremely well, not only with salads but also in meats. It's a great way to use in your marinades, either for chops or steak, and it has almost the same qualities, and it gives the right color of almost like a Worcestershire sauce. So it works really well.
And I have to say, also, when you're discussing how you've just grilled the prawns, the flavors are very simple. It's not overpowering and it's not too much.
Correct. I think you want every product to shine for itself. And in a green salad, everything's really subtle. So you want the flavors to work well together. And I feel like if your prawns are marinated, it's a bit of an overkill for the dish. So I prefer to keep it simple. The less the better. And it's something, especially after a heavy eat day, breakfast, lunch.
Yes.
Some people might not want to go for the braai or something else, but they'd enjoy the salad as a starter.
And it's something light,
Or
but
main
something
course.
still as filling.
Exactly.
Perfect. And then our VIP guest here on the table. This looks absolutely fantastic.
Thanks. So,
Tell me about this. Yeah, I think I'm sure, yes, we've got a shot of it on camera, so it's perfect. Tell me about the leg roast.
okay, so the leg roast is a Kashmiri style or North Indian leg of lamb, and it's roasted with a lot of saffron, cardamom, ilachi, cinnamon, cumin, coriander. It's got a bit of a dry rub, and then you add the yogurt, lemon juice as well, and you make a crisscross on top of the layer of fat, and you make some incisions so that the marinade goes all the way in. And preferably you should marinate it for about 24 hours before cooking it. And it takes about 2.5 hours cooking time at about 180 degrees in the oven. And you'd slice about 2 potatoes, 1 centimeter thick, as a bed for the roast to lie on, and 1 onion, also 1 centimeter thick ring. And you'd place the roast on top of that in the pan, and obviously grill it or roast it for 2.5 hours. And by that point, you'd see the meat shift away from the bone, which you know it's cooked entirely, and it's at that point it's basically fall off the bone tender. And I've made a saffron roasted potatoes to go with it, which gives it an amazing color and amazing flavor.
Absolutely. But let's just go through this dish quickly. Tell me the reasoning behind why we're slicing the potatoes and onions to put at the bottom of the pan.
So the potatoes and onions allow for the flavors to infuse into the actual leg of meat, and it's also a barrier from the harsh steel surface so that it doesn't scorch or burn, especially when you're using dairy product or yogurt in your marinade. It's essential that it doesn't see too much of direct heat, as it tends to split and it's not very appealing to the eye. Even though it's not a train smash, it's just more for aesthetic purposes that you...
Looks a little neater.
Correct.
With leg of lamb, you mentioned the tricks are preparing it at least, marinating for at least 24 hours, cooking it for at least 2 hours.
Yes, so depending on the size of the meat, but a good rule of thumb is that you take an hour for every kilo.
Okay.
At 180 degrees, and some people prefer it less done than others. So if you want it less, if you want it, say, on the medium side or medium to well with the pink center, then you'd go from anywhere from 35 minutes to a kilo.
Okay.
Instead of doing the full hour to a kilo, and the results speak for themselves. It's the showstopper on the e-table.
Absolutely, absolutely. Tell us about the saffron potatoes in terms of preparation for that.
So basically you take new baby potatoes, peeled, and I like to put them into a tray with some saffron water, salt, and about 150 grams of butter, and 1 sprig of thyme. And we bake that in the oven while the roast is going at about 180 degrees for 1 hour 15 minutes, and they come out perfectly cooked to the touch, and they've got this amazing golden color on the outside.
That's it. I was looking at the color and how well it's put together, and I always say I don't know if our cameras ever do proper justice to it, because the colors look absolutely fantastic together.
You know, that's the thing, you want to have different colors and different textures on your plate. And I think that's what makes the meal so much more memorable, because we tick all the senses and all the boxes, and it's something that we'll always remember and we'll always want to have on our e-tables.
That's it. Ozzy, the topping for the lamb.
So our basic rub on the lamb is a Kashmiri style rub, which is basically your red masala style rub. So I've chosen a dressing or a mint chutney sauce, which is basically dhania, mint, and a bit of cumin, some garlic, and a tablespoon of mayo. And I find that the freshness of the mint and coriander really cut through the earthiness of the lamb and the red masala, especially after cooking for a long time. It's developed quite a bold flavor, but the sharpness of the mint and the coriander cuts through it really well and still gives it you that fresh flavor. And we all of us like finishing our meal with some fresh dhania in any curry, and it gives you almost the same effect of that freshness, burst of freshness right at the end of your dish. And
it balances it off exceptionally well.
Correct. It gives you a nice, it's a nice clean flavor. It's fresh. It's got a bit of zing to it with the lemon juice and a bit of bite with green chili, and it's a really great accompaniment for the leg.
Fantastic. We've already presented to you some wonderful Eid ideas that you can put onto your table. When we come back after the ad break, we're going to be discussing perfect plating. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and welcome back to the last segment of the show. We are busy discussing MasterChef dishes with Ozzy, and now we're going to be talking about the perfect plating. Ozzy, one of the things we were discussing off air is about our women and our men in our community are exceptionally talented when it comes to the kitchen. Right. They are very good at putting dishes together, but I think where we always seem to struggle is just putting it out on a perfectly plated dish to make it look appetizing.
You know, I had the same struggle until I realized that it takes more common sense and more of your artistic side, and you just sit back and you look at the plate yourself and you say, you don't have to clutter it, you don't have to put too much. And the most important thing about plating is your spacing.
Yes.
And negative spacing on your plate creates a better visual for the person receiving the plate of food.
I think we've got some pictures of some plating that you have sent through to us. If we can just put those up on the screen, then we can talk through it. That's the master himself, Ozzy. and then we'll go through. But you said making sure that there is the negative spacing, making sure that we've got it in the right form so that when we present it, it comes across really well. There we go.
So a lot of different techniques and plating styles are swipes and ticks, and obviously the best result comes from the type of product you're using. Or so for example, if you plan to use a puree, yes, or you try to use a sauce, then in order to get the correct swipe or tick, you need to ensure that the puree is extremely smooth, because any lumps in it would cause, yes, a different aesthetic and a different look, which is not what is planned. And the smoother the puree is, the easier it is to swipe, and the more desired effect you get. And the different elements that you put on a plate, there should never be anything on a plate which you cannot eat. So
that's rule number one.
Correct. Rule number one is that never put anything on a plate that you can't eat. Well, that's what we were taught. However, at family dinners and at a family table, the rules may differ. It doesn't matter if you put a lemon with the skin on. It's family style. Yes. But putting a sprig of rosemary over the top of your lamb that's not cooked, there's different garnishes, yes, we can use for that. Yes. There's different applications we can use. And I think the main thing is of plating becomes your time constraints. So when planning your meal, you often take your plating into consideration first. Yes. So especially coming from the restaurant industry, you think of, when planning a menu, you always think about how your food is going to look before you create your menu. The logistics of it. How am I going to plate all these elements? Am I going to have enough time to do it? What is going to work? Is something foolproof or fail-proof? During a busy service, or having 20 guests at your eat table, and then deciding to get adventurous. Absolutely. You take the risk out of it. Yeah. So at first I'd suggest that we keep it simple. And the best way to start learning how to plate is take a packet of smashed potato, make it softer in consistency than your normal smash would be, and take a dollop, put it onto a plate, take the back end of your spoon and swipe. And the rhythm in your hand creates that perfect symmetry in the shape of your swipe. Any hesitation would cause an interruption in the flow, and automatically it would be visible on the plate. And once you're more confident, the rhythm becomes almost natural to you and becomes second nature. And if you work with a spoon and some smash, I promise you there's more than 10 different styles of just putting something on a plate. So if you take a spoon and you hold it straight up, you take a dollop of smash, put it onto the plate, and having your spoon faced upwards, and you swipe like this, it will leave the dollop and create a tail and a straight line. Yeah. And if you obviously push it down and use the base of it and you swipe, you get a side swipe. And if you put it straight down and swipe in a straight way, you get the perfect tick. So it's all these things that you can sit and play with. And obviously squeeze bottles are a great utensil to use in the kitchen. So for your chutneys, provided it's the right consistency and it's thick enough, you can put dots on your plate, you can cut the nozzle at an angle and create the same tick that you would do with the spoon, but with the squeezy bottle. And it's often easier to plate, I feel, with the squeeze bottle, and it's cleaner and neater than using a spoon. And molds are another fantastic way to plate rice dishes, like I said earlier.
But what I love the ideas that Oz has just given us as well is the fact that I know each of you are going to be taking that smash today and you're going to be practicing with the spoon, because as Ozzy mentioned, plating is not just for the desserts that we see so spectacularly plated, but it's also for our main courses and for our starters as well. Correct. So I love the ideas, and I love the fact that you've made it so easy for us to figure out how to practice those techniques as well.
Correct.
Ozzy, where do you go from here? You have had a remarkable journey in a short space of 4 years. You have recently gotten married. I have to ask you who cooks at home. That's my first question to you. But where's your journey going from here?
Shukr alhamdulillah, I've been truly blessed, and I plan to expand Aussie's Kitchen, and I've obviously been it was taking a huge risk in the beginning, and it's paid off. And shukr alhamdulillah, I plan to expand Aussie's Kitchen into the more corporate environment, doing corporate events and catering. But not only the corporate events and catering, but we plan to take Aussie's Kitchen and on a gastronomical tour across the board and highlight and showcase other talents and within the halal segment.
Yes.
And I think the halal industry in South Africa is booming currently. And in our near future plans, inshallah, we hope to have South Africa's first halal neighbor goods sort of market.
Fantastic.
And we've got the space for it, we've got the vision, and the goal is to bring everyone and give them a platform to showcase their product.
And I think, as you mentioned, the halal industry is a huge market as it is, and we are seeing it making its strides in South Africa as well, with many places offering halal food.
That's correct. You know, it's halal has become the biggest franchise in the world, and it's a cleaner way of eating. It's a healthier way of eating, and I think the preparation and the methodology of the actual process of cooking and the kitchens ensure that you have a certain level of safety and hygiene and cleanliness. And I think that's what's become so attractive to the markets. Everyone wants to eat halal, and it's besides for the technical factor of halal, I think also the flavors of halal it's automatically connected to an Indian or spicier way of cooking, which it's quite appealing to the different nationalities within our country.
Absolutely. Ozzy, what are your tips and tricks for those that wanting to put the Eid meal together, wanting to prepare for it? From the Aussie's Kitchen himself, what are your tips and tricks for Eid?
I think lots of the aunties will shout me, but you know what? If you put your head down to it in the kitchen and you create a plan for yourself, in the kitchen we have something called a mise en place, which is in French and translates in English to make in place. So every morning you go into your kitchen and you basically write your list of what you need to do. And if you look at your list for your Eid meal, so you write biryani and you know everything that you need to plan for biryani and prep. So you'd start off by making your white rice, but while your white rice is going, you can marinate your chicken and make the masala for your biryani. So I think the best preparation of all is still planning. And it allows for such a smoother service and for an easier and more controlled cooking or preparation time. And I try to avoid Fortsburg 2 days before Eid. It's chaotic. But it's all part of the atmosphere. It's all part of the feeling, and I think that's what we've grown up with, and that's what we're used to. So it's fun to be in the traffic. It's fun to hear people hooting.
Not for all of us that are trying to fast and get through that day.
Correct.
So I think the preparing and the planning definitely is key to putting together the perfect meal. Any other tips in terms of the cooking of it? Any ideas further from there?
So lots of we're starting to eat more and more healthy, and I think any quantities that we see of oil we should try to use as least as possible.
Yes.
I know something that annoys lots of the people on the Eid table is seeing lots of fat or oil floating around in their pots, and it's not really necessary.
Fantastic.
We can come up with solutions to cook differently and healthier and cleaner. And
healthier and cleaning eating from the master himself. Ozzy, shukran so much for joining us on air today. It's been such a pleasure. We've learned so much from you, and we're so grateful to have you take the time out to come and share your expertise with us as well.
It's an absolute pleasure. Thank you for having me.
And we wish you all the best. Any last words to our viewers before I wrap up?
No, we just want to say Eid Mubarak from Aussie's Kitchen, and we wish everyone a blessed day and joyous occasion.
Alhamdulillah. We have been having a very splendid month, Alhamdulillah, with people who have been so talented, who've been willing to share their expertise. And Ozzy has been doing exactly the same with us, to be able to come out and share with us tips and tricks on how to put together the perfect Eid meal, and not just in terms of taste and quality, but also in terms of just plating it perfectly. So I have no doubt that you will be doing an amazing Eid platter for the Eid day as well. We're very thankful to Inspired Style, who has been sponsoring all my abayas through this month, and they've been absolutely beautiful. I've loved every minute of wearing them as well. To all our viewers, this is our last episode for Ramadan. Make the most of the next few days. As Ozzy says, and as all our guests have always said, if we prepare and plan properly, we won't be wasting any time. So we can put together enough time to still focus on our ibadah and to continue our praying as well. We wish you a blessed few days. Please do remember us in your du'as. And to you and your families, we wish you a joyous, a blessed, and a very safe Eid Mubarak. From our team to your families, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
السلام حياة